The sun was setting on a distant alien world, casting an eerie orange glow over the jungle. The trees were massive, their thick vines hanging down like thick ropes, and the air was dense, heavy with the scent of strange, unfamiliar flowers. Human boy named Jack stumbled through the thick undergrowth, his heart racing. His breath came in shallow gasps as he tried to make his way through the dense forest. He had crashed on this strange world days ago, and since then, his only goal had been survival. Jack wasn't the kind of boy who was easily scared, but this planet was unlike anything he had ever seen. The animals, the plants, the sky itself, was all so different. He had no idea where he was or how to get back to his ship. His hands were cut, his clothes torn, and the last of his water supply had run out hours ago. He was lost and exhausted, but he couldn't stop. He had to keep moving. Lee. He noticed something strange in the distance. A figure, half hidden by the foliage, seemed to be lying on the ground. Curiosity gnawed at him, pushing him forward. Was it another survivor from the crash? Or perhaps some kind of alien creature? The thought made him uneasy, but Jack's sense of duty pushed him forward. The closer he got, the clearer the figure became. It was an alien girl, her body covered in some kind of glowing, iridescent skin. She was lying unconscious on the forest floor, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Her long white hair cascaded around her and her body seemed almost delicate, fragile, like something out of a dream. Jack froze for a moment, staring at her. She didn't look like anything he had ever seen. She wasn't human, but there was something about her that made his heart skip a beat. Was she alive? He rushed over to her side, kneeling beside her. His hands were trembling as he reached out to check for a pulse. To his relief, he felt a faint heartbeat. He could barely believe it. How could someone like her have ended up here, on this strange planet, alone and wounded? Jack quickly checked her over, noticing the dark bruises on her arms and legs. She looked like she had been through some kind of battle. Without thinking, he lifted her up gently, cradling her in his arms. "I need to get you to safety," he muttered. To himself, his mind racing. But just as he stood up, something caught his agile movement in the shadows. A low growl echoed through the jungle, sending chills down Jack's spine. Out of nowhere, a massive creature emerged from the trees. Its eyes glowed red, and its sharp claws scraped against the earth as it stepped forward. The creature was unlike anything Jack had ever seen, part reptile, part beast, with scales covering its entire body and fangs that seemed long enough to tear through steel. It was large, easily 3 times the size of a human, and it had the look of a predator. It wasn't just hunting for food, it was hunting for something specific. The beast's eyes locked onto the alien girl in Jack's arms, and a deep growl rumbled in its chest. Jack could feel the tension building, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature had sensed the girl's vulnerability, and it was ready to strike. Jack's instincts kicked in. He quickly placed the girl down gently on the ground and stood between her and the approaching beast. "Stay back," he yelled, trying to sound more confident than he felt. He knew he didn't stand a chance against such a creature, but he couldn't just let it hurt her. He had to protect her. The beast snarled, its claws scraping the earth as it lunged forward. Jack barely had time to react. In a desperate move, he grabbed a long stick from the ground and swung it at the creature, hoping to drive it back. The stick cracked against the beast's side, but it barely seemed to notice. The creature's eyes narrowed, and in a flash, it swiped its massive claws across Jack's chest. Jack stumbled backward, pain shooting through his body as the claws dug into his skin. He gasped for breath, blood staining his shirt, but he couldn't give up. He gritted his teeth and took another step forward. The alien girl was still on the ground, helpless, and Jack couldn't let this beast win. With every ounce of strength, he swung the stick again, this time aiming for the beast's face. The creature howled in pain, but it wasn't enough to stop it. The beast roared and lunged at Jack, knocking him to the ground. The last thing Jack saw before everything went black was the glowing red eyes of the beast, inches away from his face. But just as the beast was about to strike, a sudden flash of light illuminated the jungle. The air hummed with energy, and Jack felt a wave of power rush over him. He heard the beast growl in confusion before a loud crack echoed through the jungle. The creature's claws missed him by mere inches. Jack's vision blurred, and his head spun as he tried to get to his feet. The beast was no longer moving. Instead, it was lying motionless on the ground. In the distance, Jack heard a soft voice, alien, and yet strangely familiar. It was the alien girl, her eyes glowing faintly, her hands raised as if she had cast some kind of powerful spell. She was the one who had saved him, but Jack had no time to process what had just happened. His world was spinning, and as the darkness overtook him, he collapsed beside the alien girl, the last thought in his mind being a single question. Who was she, really? The jungle was silent now, but danger still loomed. What would happen next? Jack had no idea, but the adventure was only just beginning. Jack awoke with a start, his body throbbing in pain as he groggily opened his eyes. The world around him was blurry, and for a moment he wasn't sure if he was still alive. His chest felt tight, his breathing shallow. He tried to move, but stopped. When he noticed the alien girl lying next to him, she was still unconscious, her delicate form glowing faintly in the dim light of the jungle. The strange energy he had felt earlier seemed to still linger in the air, as if it was waiting for something to happen. His mind raced as he tried to process everything that had happened. The beast, the attack, the sudden flash of light. What was going on? He was no expert in alien biology or advanced technology, but Jack knew one thing for sure. There was something incredibly powerful about this girl. She had saved him, but how? How had she done it? Jack's hand instinctively reached out toward her, but as his fingers brushed her glowing skin, a sharp jolt of energy ran through his body. He recoiled in surprise, pulling his hand back, but this time, instead of recoiling, he felt ... The feeling spread through his body like a wave of warmth, and the pain in his chest seemed to ease. For a moment, he felt at peace, as if the wound on his body was no longer there. His breathing steadied, and the fog in his mind began to lift. "Are you awake?" A voice, soft and distant, interrupted his thoughts. It was her, the alien girl. Her voice was unlike anything he had ever heard. It wasn't human, but it felt soothing, almost melodic. Jack looked down at her in surprise. She was awake, her eyes glowing faintly as she slowly sat up. I don't know what happened," Jack murmured, his voice hoarse. "Did you save me?" She nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving him. "Yes. You were hurt. The beast's bite was ... severe." She paused for a moment, as if contemplating something. "But you survived." Jack didn't know what to say. He couldn't comprehend how she had healed him, how her touch had caused such a dramatic change in his condition. His mind raced as he searched for answers, but he found none. She wasn't like any alien he had ever read about in books or seen in movies. She was something else, something far beyond anything he had ever imagined. "What are you?" Jack asked, his voice filled with curiosity and wonder. The girl's eyes flickered with emotion. She seemed to hesitate before answering, as if struggling to find the right words. "I am Lyra," she said softly. "I am from a distant world, far from here. My people, my kind, are the ones who control the forces of nature on my planet. I have the ability to heal, to connect with the energy around me." Jack's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't just an alien, she was ... something more. She spoke of her people with a kind of reverence, but there was something in her tone that made Jack uneasy. It wasn't fear, but something darker, something that hinted at a deeper conflict. "But why are you here?" Jack asked, the question burning on his tongue. "How did you end up on this planet?" Lyra's gaze shifted, and for a moment, she seemed lost in thought. The quiet hum of the jungle filled the air around them, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He tried to ignore the tension in the air, but it was impossible. The jungle, once peaceful, now felt alive with a dangerous energy. "Sent here," Lyra said, her voice faltering. "My people. They wanted me to stop something terrible, but I broke the rules. I couldn't follow their orders. So, I ran." Jack frowned, confusion clouding his mind. "Stop what? What is going on? What are you running from?" She looked at him, her eyes locking with his. There was a quiet intensity in her gaze, something that made Jack feel like she was searching for something in him. "You're part of this, Jack. You don't understand it yet, but you're involved now. They'll come for you, too." Jack's pulse quickened. Who were they? What had she done to get herself in trouble? And why was he suddenly involved in this mess? Before he could ask any more questions, a deep, rumbling sound echoed from the jungle. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble as the air grew colder. Jack's heart stopped in his chest. He recognized the sound. It was the beast, the one that had attacked them earlier. But it was different this time. It was ... louder, closer. Expression turned serious, and she stood up quickly, her glowing skin illuminating the area around her. She motioned for Jack to stay behind her, and without a word she began to move toward the source of the sound. "What's going on?" Jack asked, his voice rising in fear. "Why is it coming back?" "It's not just the beast," Lyra said, her voice filled with urgency. "It's the alien chief. He's leading the hunt. He knows I'm here. He knows I've broken their laws." Jack's eyes widened. The alien chief, the figure that had appeared before them earlier, watching from the shadows. But Jack hadn't seen him as a threat then. He had thought of him as just another figure in the strange alien world he was stuck in. But now he realized the alien chief was far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. "We have to go," Lyra said, turning to Jack with a determined look in her eyes. "They'll stop at nothing to capture me. And if they catch you, too, ... double quotes." Jack didn't need her to finish the sentence. He knew what would happen if they were caught. He had no idea what the alien chief wanted with Lyra, but Jack could feel that his life was about to take a turn he never expected. There was no turning back now. As the rumbling sound grew louder, Jack took a deep breath and followed Lyra, knowing that whatever came next, he would be facing a challenge unlike anything he had ever imagined. And somehow he knew that he wasn't alone in this. The air crackled with tension as the jungle seemed to pulse around them. Jack's heart raced in his chest, each beat thudding louder than the last. He followed Lyra, struggling to keep up as she moved with a grace that was unnatural, her glowing form cutting through the thick underbrush like a beacon. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every rustling leaf a harbinger of danger. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in on them, something far more dangerous than he could comprehend. As they moved deeper into the forest, Jack glanced over at Lyra. She was focused, her eyes scanning the jungle around them, but there was something in her expression that unsettled him. It wasn't just the urgency, it was the fear. For the first time since they had met, Jack saw something in Lyra that was unmistakable vulnerability. "Lyra, what exactly are we running from?" Jack asked, trying to catch his breath. "Who is the alien chief, and why does he want you?" She didn't answer immediately, her pace quickening as she glanced over her shoulder. "The alien chief is more than just a leader," she said, her voice tight. "He is a ruler, a conqueror. My people, my kind, have been at war for centuries. And the chief, he's not just hunting me, he's hunting everything I care about." Jack's confusion deepened, but there was no time to press her for more details. The sounds from behind them grew louder, a deep, rumbling growl that seemed to echo through the jungle like thunder. Jack instinctively looked around, his mind racing. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, but he knew one thing: he was terrified. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them. The trees swayed, their massive trunks creaking as something enormous moved through the forest. Jack's eyes widened as he turned to Lyra, panic rising in his chest. "We're not going to outrun that thing, are we?" Lyra didn't answer, her expression unreadable, but Jack could see the flicker of something in her eyes, something that told him she had an idea of what to do next. Before Jack could react, Lyra reached out and grabbed his arm, pulling him to a stop. "Listen to me," she said, her voice low and urgent. "You don't know this world, Jack. You don't know the danger we're in, but you have to trust me now. The only way to survive is to fight." Jack's brow furrowed. "Fight? I'm not some soldier. I don't even know how to." Lyra cut him off with a sharp look. "You don't need to be, just follow my lead." As if on cue, the beast appeared from the trees, its massive form silhouetted against the glowing light of the sky. It was larger than Jack remembered, its muscles rippling beneath its scales, its eyes burning with an intense hunger. The creature let out a deafening roar, its jaws snapping as it lunged toward them. Jack's heart skipped a beat, but before the beast could reach them, Lyra raised her hand, and the air around them seemed to shift. The jungle's energy crackled, and Jack felt a sudden surge of power, as if the very earth beneath his feet was alive. Lyra's skin glowed even brighter, and her eyes burned with a fierce determination. "Now, Jack," she shouted. Without thinking, Jack grabbed a nearby branch and swung it at the beast, his body moving instinctively. The creature recoiled, momentarily stunned by the force of the strike. But it quickly recovered, its claws slashing through the air toward Jack. He barely managed to dodge the sharp claws grazing his arm, leaving a painful gash. The beast was fast, and Jack's instincts were barely enough to keep him alive. But then Lyra moved. She stepped forward, her hand raised, and a powerful wave of energy shot from her palm, crashing into the beast's side. The creature howled in pain, its massive body sent flying backward, crashing into a group of trees with a loud crash. Jack stood frozen, his eyes wide in disbelief. Lyra had done it. She had just taken down the beast with a single move. But before he could fully process what had happened, a deeper growl rumbled through the jungle. The sound wasn't coming from the creature, it was coming from something far worse. The alien chief stepped out from the shadows, his massive form towering over them. He was clad in dark, imposing armor, his eyes glowing with a cold, calculating light. The jungle seemed to fall silent at his presence, as if the very air held its breath. Jack's pulse quickened as he stared at the alien chief. his mind racing. This was the Manda figure who had been hunting them. He had a power that was unlike anything Jack had ever seen, and he wasn't going to stop until he got what he wanted. Lyra stood her ground, her body tense, her glowing skin dimming slightly as she faced him. "You shouldn't have come, Chief," she said, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. "I'm not your pawn anymore. I won't follow your orders." The alien chief's eyes narrowed, his gaze locking onto Lyra. "You think you can defy me? Go." His voice was like the growl of a predator, smooth and deadly. "You belong to me. You always have." Lyra shook her head, her lips set in a firm line. "Not anymore. I've seen what you're capable of. I've seen the destruction you bring. I won't be part of it." Jack watched in awe as Lyra stood up to the alien leader, her resolve unshaken. There was a strength in her that he hadn't fully understood until now. She wasn't just trying to survive. She was fighting for something greater. She was fighting for a future, her future. The alien chief didn't seem to be convinced. He took a step forward, his eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. "You have no idea what you're up against, little girl. You think you can stop me?" Lyra's eyes gleamed with power as she stepped forward, her stance firm and unwavering. "I don't just think it, I know it." Jack didn't fully understand what was going on, but he knew one thing. This was it. The battle for their survival had just begun, and no matter what happened next, he was going to be in the fight of his life. The tension in the air grew thicker with each passing moment as Lyra stood face to face with the alien chief. Jack could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, the knowledge that their fate was hanging by a thread. The jungle had gone eerily silent, as if it too was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Jack's heart was racing, but he couldn't look away. He had never seen anything like this. Two beings, one human and one alien, locked in a battle of wills, each with their own power and purpose. The alien chief's eyes were cold, calculating, yet there was something in them that hinted at an age-old wisdom. His armor, dark and imposing, seemed to absorb the light around him, making him appear even more formidable. His presence alone seemed to bend the very atmosphere, making it feel as though the jungle itself was shrinking away in fear. "Believe you can defy me, Lyra." The alien chief spoke, his voice deep and resonant, like thunder rolling across the sky. "You've crossed a line you cannot undo." Lyra's expression remained unwavering, but Jack could see the weight of his words pressing against her. She had been running for so long, but now she was standing tall, confronting the very force she had tried to escape. Her voice, when it came, was sharp and full of authority. "I don't care about your rules anymore. You destroyed everything I knew, and now you want to control what's left of my world. That ends today." The alien chief took a slow, deliberate step forward, his gaze never leaving Lyra. His presence seemed to dominate the space, suffocating everything around them. "You are a fool," he said, his voice colder now. "You have no idea what you are up against. You were nothing but a tool to us, and now you've chosen to abandon your purpose. The consequences of that choice will be your undoing." Jack couldn't stay silent anymore. He had to say something. He couldn't just stand there, watching as Lyra faced down a figure so powerful, so terrifying. "What does he mean?" Jack asked, his voice shaky but determined. "What did you mean when you said you broke the rules?" Lyra's eyes softened for a brief moment as she turned to Jack, but there was no time for comfort or explanation. "The alien chief," she said, her voice tight, "represents everything that's wrong with my people. They are conquerors, controlling the very elements of the universe. I was trained to be one of them, but when I saw what they were doing, destroying worlds, taking life without mercy, couldn't stand by. I had to escape." Jack's mind was spinning, trying to make sense of her words. But before he could ask more, the alien chief's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You're wasting your breath, Lyra," he said, his voice low and menacing. "You cannot outrun fate. You were born to serve. You were born to destroy." Lyra's eyes blazed with defiance as she stepped forward. "I was born to live, not to serve. I have the power to stop you, to change everything you've done, and I will." The alien chief's gaze flickered for a moment, and Jack saw a brief moment of something, a flash of uncertainty. But it was gone before he could fully process it, replaced by a deeper fury. "You think you can stop me? Do you really believe that you can stand against everything I've built?" Lyra nodded firmly, her voice steady now. "I don't just think it, I know it." In that instant, Jack saw the shift. Lyra wasn't just a girl with strange powers anymore, she was a force in her own right. The energy around her seemed to change, crackling with power, and for a moment, the jungle seemed to come alive in response. The trees swayed as if acknowledging her strength. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation. The alien chief narrowed his eyes, sensing the change. You are not ready, Lyra. You have no idea what you're about to face. You've made a grave mistake. Lyra's hand shot out, and in an instant, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The jungle around them seemed to come alive with energy as if it were responding to her command. The earth cracked, and tendrils of energy shot upward, wrapping around the alien chief like chains, holding him in place. He struggled, but the more he fought, the tighter the bonds became. His glowing eyes flared with rage as he tried to break free, but it was no use. Lyra's power was overwhelming. For the first time, Jack saw the alien chief vulnerable. He was no longer the untouchable figure he had appeared to be. He was now at the mercy of Lyra's will. You were right about one thing, Lyra said, her voice now calm, almost serene. I may not have been ready before, but now I am. The alien chief snarled, but there was no escape. You think this is over. You think you've won. His voice was laced with venom. You have no idea what you've started. Lyra didn't flinch. It's already over. Your reign ends now. With a final wave of her hand, the tendrils of energy tightened, and the alien chief was brought to his knees. The jungle was silent, the hum of power slowly dissipating into the air. Jack stood there, his mouth agape, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. The man, the figure who had been hunting them, who had seemed invincible, was now defeated, rendered powerless by Lyra's will. But even as Jack felt a sense of relief, a voice in the back of his mind told him that this was just the beginning. The alien chief may have been defeated, but the power he wielded wasn't gone. It had only been momentarily silenced. Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes filled with determination. This is just the first step, Jack. The real battle is still ahead. Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. He had no idea what Lyra meant, but he knew one thing for sure: there was no turning back now. He was caught in the middle of something far bigger than himself, and there was no escape from it. The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath as the quiet moments stretched on. Lyra was right. They had won this round, but the real fight, the one that would shape their futures, was just beginning. Lyra stood still, her eyes fixed on the alien chief as he knelt before her, bound by the energy she had unleashed. The jungle around them was still, the chaos of the battle suddenly silenced by her overwhelming power. But despite the victory, there was a heavy weight hanging in the air, a realization that they had only won a small part of the larger war. Jack's mind was racing as he took in the scene. The alien chief, though immobilized, still radiated a dangerous presence. His eyes, glowing with fury, pierced through the dim light, and the air around him seemed to crackle with residual energy. Jack felt an unsettling chill run down his spine. Even defeated, the chief was no ordinary foe. The power he commanded was immense, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this victory had only just begun to unravel. Something much darker. Lyra's gaze softened as she looked down at the alien chief. You're defeated for now, she said, her voice steady, but filled with an undercurrent of sorrow. But you've already set things in motion. You can't undo what you've done. The chief let out a low, guttural laugh, a sound that sent shivers through Jack's body. You think this changes anything? You think your rebellion will stop? The inevitable, your people have no power left. You're just a flicker in the dark, Lyra. I've seen your kind fall before. Lyra clenched her fists, her expression hardening. I won't let you destroy everything. Not this time. The alien chief's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a sinister smile. You don't understand, do you? This isn't about me. It's about something much bigger. Your planet is already doomed. The destruction has already begun, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Jack felt a sudden coldness fill the air, his breath coming out in a visible puff. His heart began to pound in his chest. What did the chief mean? Was Lyra's homeworld truly lost? And if so, what did that mean for him and Lyra? For the first time, the weight of their situation truly sank in. He wasn't just caught in a battle between two powerful beings, he was part of something that had the potential to destroy everything. Lyra turned away from the chief, her body tense, her jaw clenched. She didn't respond to his words, but Jack could see the conflict in her eyes. The anger was there, but so was something else, a deep sorrow, as if the realization had already begun to set in. We don't have much time, she said, her voice low and urgent. I knew there would be a price to pay for defying him, but I didn't realize it would come so soon. He's right about one thing, my world. It's already falling apart. The chief and his followers have been preparing for this for years. Jack stepped closer, his mind reeling from her words. What do you mean? How could your world fall apart? You have all this power, why can't you stop it? Lyra sighed, her eyes distant, as if recalling something painful. I was born into a family of powerful leaders, Jack, but I saw what my people were doing to the universe. They were taking worlds, stripping them of everything: life, resources, history. They didn't care. They wanted to dominate, to control. But when I saw the truth, I couldn't be part of it. I couldn't watch them destroy everything just for the sake of power. I ran, hoping to find a way to stop it all. Jack watched her, his heart aching as he understood the depth of her pain. You didn't just escape, you wanted to stop them. Lyra nodded. But I failed. I didn't stop them in time. The Chief's plans are already in motion. The destruction isn't just on my planet, it's spreading. And now, it's coming for this world. Jack's thoughts raced. Everything he had known, everything he thought he understood was now being questioned. The stakes were higher than people have ever imagined. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of countless worlds. And the cost of failure could be unimaginable. We can't let him win, Jack said, his voice firm, filled with a new sense of purpose. If we don't stop him, everything we know will be gone. But how do we stop him? Lyra turned to him, her expression hardening with resolve. I don't know yet, but there is one thing we can do. The Chief has a weapon, a device that will tip the balance in his favor. It's hidden in the depths of his base. If we destroy it, we can weaken his forces. But getting to it won't be easy. Jack's mind raced as he processed her words. A weapon hidden deep within the Chief's base. It seemed like an impossible mission, but there was no other choice. If they didn't act, the universe would be consumed by the Chief's plans. Then, we go after it, Jack said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. We find that weapon, and we destroy it together. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the briefest moment, Jack could see a flicker of something, hope, perhaps, but it was quickly replaced by a steely determination. Yes, together. The jungle seemed to exhale around them, the air shifting as the tension of the moment settled in. Lyra was no longer the hunted. She had become the hunter, and Jack, once an outsider in this strange world, was now an integral part of the fight. Their mission was clear, but the road ahead was fraught with danger. There was no turning back. Are you ready? Lyra asked, her voice soft but resolute. Jack nodded, his eyes locked onto hers. I've come this far, I'm not stopping now. The two of them turned toward the jungle's edge, where the dim glow of the horizon beckoned. The alien chief was defeated, but his threat still loomed large. Their journey was far from over, and what lay ahead could either be their salvation or their doom. But they would face it together, determined to fight for a future where the light of hope still burned. No matter how dark the world had become, they stepped forward. The first rays of dawn began to break through the trees. The battle for survival was just beginning, and the world was watching. Would they prevail, or would the darkness consume them all? Only time would tell. The sun was low in the sky, casting long, jagged shadows across the jungle floor as Jack and Lyra moved silently through the dense undergrowth. The jungle, which had once felt alive with danger, now seemed eerily quiet. The familiar rustle of leaves and distant animal calls were muted, as if the very planet was holding its breath in anticipation of what was about to unfold. Jack's thoughts were heavy with the weight of their mission. They were about to infiltrate the alien chief's stronghold, a place rumored to be filled with traps, guards, and advanced technology beyond their understanding. The odds of success seemed slim, but failure was not an option. Lyra led the way, her movements fluid and purposeful. Jack had never seen her so focused. The resolve in her eyes was unmistakable. She had once been a leader, a person of great power among her people, but that was before she had broken from them. Now she was a fugitive, a symbol of defiance in a world that was crumbling around her. Her power was unmatched, but even she knew that this mission would test her in ways she hadn't expected. Jack, on the other hand, was no soldier. He had been a simple boy, caught up in the whirlwind of events far greater than himself. But the journey they had taken together, the battles they had fought side by side, had changed him. He had seen things, done things, that he could never have imagined before. Now, as they approached the heart of the alien chief's base, he felt something stir within him, a sense of purpose, a sense of responsibility. He wasn't just here for Lyra anymore. He was here for the future of the universe itself. The jungle began to thin, and soon they found themselves standing at the edge of a vast canyon. The base was located on the other side, a sprawling structure of steel and glass, rising like a dark monolith against the setting sun. Jack could see movement at the entrance guards, patrolling the area, their figures silhouetted against the harsh light of the fortress. The security was tight, and Jack felt a lump form in his throat. Getting in wouldn't be easy. Lyra turned to him, her eyes scanning the terrain. "We'll have to be smart about this," she said, her voice low but clear. "If we charge in headfirst, we won't make it past the first line of defense. We'll need to find a way in without being seen." Jack nodded, his mind racing. He had no idea how they would do it, but they had no choice. The weapon they needed to destroy was somewhere inside that base, and time was running out. If they didn't act soon, the alien chief's plans would be unstoppable. Lyra crouched down, examining the ground. "There's a service tunnel a few hundred meters to the right," she murmured. "It's used for supply deliveries. We'll sneak in through there." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You've been here before?" Lyra's lips twisted into a small, knowing smile. "I've been here more times than I care to remember. I know their patterns, their weaknesses." With that, they moved toward the service tunnel, keeping to the shadows as much as possible. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, the adrenaline starting to kick in. They were getting closer, and every step felt like it was leading them deeper into enemy territory. The air was thick with tension, and Jack could almost feel the eyes of the enemy watching them from the darkness. They reached the tunnel entrance, hidden behind a row of dense shrubs. Lyra motioned for Jack to wait as she approached the hatch. With practiced ease, she disabled the security lock and pried the door open just enough for them to slip through. The cool, metallic scent of the tunnel greeted them as they crawled inside, their movements slow and deliberate. The tunnel was narrow, with pipes and wires running along the walls. It was dimly lit, the soft hum of machinery echoing through the corridors. Jack felt a pang of unease, but he knew they had to keep moving. The further they went, the closer they got to their goal. But with every step, the sense of danger grew, as if they were walking deeper into the lion's den. As they moved through the twisting labyrinth of tunnels, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was almost too perfect to still. He glanced over at Lyra, whose face was a mask of concentration, but he could see the subtle tension in her shoulders. She was uneasy too. "Lyra, what's going on?" Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. Lyra stopped, in her tracks, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know," she said quietly. "This doesn't feel right. It's too quiet. They should have noticed us by now." Just as she finished speaking, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He froze, pressing himself against the cold stone wall. Lyra did the same, her body tense as she waited for the guards to pass. The footsteps grew louder, and then, just as they were about to pass their hiding spot, a figure appeared at the end of the tunnel. Tall, armored soldier, his helmet gleaming in the dim light. He stopped, scanning the area, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. Jack held his breath, his body rigid with fear. If the guard turned in their direction, it would all be over. But then, to Jack's surprise, the guard took a step forward, his gaze passing over the spot where they were hiding. Lyra's hand shot out, and in a blur of motion, she sent a pulse of energy surging through the air. The guard's body jerked, and he collapsed to the ground in a heap. Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "We don't have time to play it safe. We need to keep moving." They continued down the corridor, the weight of the danger pressing down on them. With every step, they drew closer to the heart of the base and closer to the weapon. That could change everything. But even as they neared their goal, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. Something told him that the alien chief was always one step ahead, and no matter how much they fought, they might never be able to outrun him. As they neared the central chamber, Lyra's pace quickened. "It's just ahead," she whispered. "The weapon is in that room." Jack's throat tightened. This was it, the moment of truth. He glanced at Lyra, who was now moving with a quiet intensity, her eyes fixed on the door ahead. The final confrontation was about to begin. The door before them loomed like a barrier between hope and despair, its sleek metallic surface cold and unforgiving. Jack's pulse raced in his ears as he watched Lyra, her glowing form just a silhouette against the dimly lit corridor. She stepped forward, her fingers brushing the edges of the control panel beside the door. There was no turning back now. The weapon, the key to stopping the alien chief and his conquest, was just beyond that door, and with it, their future. "Ready." Lyra's voice was steady, but Jack could hear the undercurrent of something else, fear, perhaps, or maybe a quiet desperation. She had come so far, and now the end was within her reach. Jack nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I've never been more ready." The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the heart of the alien chief's base. The room was massive, an imposing chamber filled with advanced technology that hummed with unnatural power. Strange, glowing symbols covered the walls, and in the center of the room stood a colossal machina device that looked like something out of a nightmare. It pulsed with energy, its core crackling with power. Jack's breath caught in his throat. This was it, the weapon. Lyra moved toward it, her every step purposeful. Her eyes burned with determination as she took in the machine. Jack could see the weight of what this moment meant in her gaze. The weapon was their only hope, the last chance to end the alien chief's reign of terror. Is this it? Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. He didn't need to ask, but the question felt necessary. The enormity of what they were about to do hit him like a freight train. It was almost too much to comprehend. The fate of entire worlds rested on their shoulders. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She was too focused, her fingers flying over a series of controls on the side of the machine. The energy in the room shifted, as if responding to her touch. The pulsing glow of the machine intensified, casting long, eerie shadows across the walls. "This is it," she said finally, her voice low. "This is the weapon the chief has been using to control entire civilizations. It's not just a weapon of destruction, it's a tool of domination. It bends the very fabric of reality to its will." Jack's mind raced. He had known this mission wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't fully understood the depth of what they were up against. This wasn't just some doomsday device, it was a force capable of reshaping entire worlds, of controlling minds, bending will. The implications of that were staggering. "We have to destroy it," Jack said, the words heavy on his tongue. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She reached out and placed her hand gently on the machine's surface, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. The energy around her seemed to hum, resonating with her presence. She closed her eyes, as if trying to feel the machine's pulse, but then, a voice cold and menacing echoed through the chamber. "You really think you can destroy it, Lyra?" Jack froze, his blood running cold. The alien chief. His presence was everywhere now, suffusing the air with a suffocating weight. Jack spun around, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of the chief. He wasn't visible, but Jack could feel him, a dark force lurking just beyond the edges of his awareness. Lyra's eyes flashed open, and she straightened, her jaw set. "I don't think," she said, her voice steady. "I know." The machine pulsed with energy, the air thick with tension as the alien chief's voice grew louder, more insistent. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. That machine is the key to everything I've built. It's not just a weapon, it's the foundation of my power. You can't just destroy it. It's meant to be." Lyra's face hardened as she turned back to the machine. "It's meant to control, to dominate. It's not power, it's enslavement. And that ends now." The machine's pulsing glow intensified, filling the room with an ominous light. Jack felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up, the energy in the room growing heavy. It was like the very air was charged with electricity, humming with anticipation. A deep guttural laugh echoed from the shadows. "You're a fool, Lyra. You think you can stop me? You've already lost." Suddenly, the walls of the chamber seemed to bend inward, and the temperature in the room dropped. Jack's breath turned to fog as the alien chief's presence grew stronger, more tangible. The air itself seemed to warp, distorting as though the very fabric of reality was beginning to unravel. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as the weight of the situation bore down on him. The alien chief wasn't just threatening them now, he was changing the rules of reality itself. Lyra's hand hovered over the controls, her face a mask of concentration. "We can't let him control it," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "We have to destroy it now." But before Jack could speak, the ground beneath them trembled. The machine's hum grew louder, more insistent, as the walls of the chamber began to pulse in time with the energy coursing through the device. The room felt like it was alive, a living, breathing entity, and the pressure around them was unbearable. The alien chief's voice filled the room once again, this time filled with a dark, triumphant tone. "You're too late. The machine has already activated, there's no stopping it now." Lyra's eyes widened as the machine's energy flared to life, its core glowing with blinding intensity. She pressed her hand to the controls, her fingers dancing across the panel in a frenzy. "No," she whispered, "it's not too late. I can still stop it, I can." Jack's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. The alien chief was right, they were out of time. The machine was already in motion. If they didn't act fast, everything would be lost. But Lyra wasn't giving up. She was fighting, with a final, desperate movement. She slammed her hand down onto the control panel, and the machine let out a deafening roar. The ground shook beneath them, and the light from the machine became blinding, filling the chamber with an otherworldly glow dot, and then, in an instant, everything went silent. Jack's ears rang as the world around him seemed to freeze. The air hung heavy, thick with tension. For a moment, It was as if time itself had stopped. Lyra stood motionless, her eyes wide with shock. As the machine sputtered and groaned, its glow flickering before it slowly began to fade. "It's done," Lyra whispered, her voice hoarse, but just as Jack allowed himself a breath of relief, a new, terrible presence filled the room. The alien chief's voice, cold and filled with rage, echoed one final time. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning. You have no idea what's coming next." The silence that followed was deafening, as if the world itself was holding its breath, and in that moment, Jack knew their fight was far from over. The real battle had just begun.